I hate the God that man created. We have the real God. We have the Word. We have God's system. God's system is so great and so powerful until even God uses it. That's how great of a system God is for us to live by. But then man wants to go and create this stupid, fabricated, false God. And the majority of what we see today is based on that false God that man created. The majority of what we hear today is based on that God that man created. You see, the Bible says that men were ignorant of God's righteousness and went about to establish their own righteousness, and they have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. When you pay attention to the majority of the churches we see today, that's exactly what you see going on. You see people living by a God that was created by man. You see people trying to line their lives up with a God that was created by man. You see people trying to live according to a set of rules that were created by man, and they call this God. Trying not to sin because you think you'll go to hell, that's under the God that man created. Praying and trying to speak in tongues louder than the next person to prove how saved you are, that's under the God that man created. Trying to put $100 in the offering so that you can get 200 back in a blessing, that's under the God that man created. Making up false testimonies so you can sound like you're more blessed than the next brother, that's under the God that man created. Not listening to people that's trying to tell you the truth because you already think you know the truth and you can't let anybody out know you, that's under the God that man created. Claiming to be blessed when you know you're struggling. Claiming to be highly favored when you don't even understand what's going on in your life. That falls under the God that man created. Waiting on God to do what you asked him to do, but you're not doing what the Bible specifically tells you to do. That's what you do under the God that man created. Knowing that you're not obeying the truth in faith, but you're still looking for a blessing from God, that's the God that man created. Knowing that you have not prayed the prayer of faith, you have not laid hands on the sick, but you still expect God to heal them, that's the God that man created. Living your life doing whatever it is you want to do, but then showing up at a church service on Sunday pretending that you are living your life according to the truth, that is under the God that man created. Getting excited about the offering you're giving, knowing doggone well that you ain't got nothing but $1 in that envelope, that's under the God that man created. Putting up a good front in church, putting up a good show for somebody else to see, putting on a good show for somebody to pat you on your back and for people to think you are something that you're not, that's under the God that man created. Just about everything we see going on is falling under the God that man created, and the God that man created is stopping people from being able to see the true God. Living by the righteousness that's according to the God that man created is stopping people from being able to get to the point where they can live by the righteousness that's according to faith. And it's keeping people stuck on the God that man created. You see these magnificent church services going on, and the things that are taking place are not even associated with the things of God. And it's amazing because right now I probably sound wrong to the majority of people that's listening, because all we know is these church services. All we know is these revivals. All we know is running around. All we know is the speaking in tongues. All we know is the giving of the offering. All we know is this service that has a program, and that's what we think God is all about. But I'm telling you, that's not God. I'm telling you, that is what man created, and that is the righteousness of man. God's righteousness is righteousness according to faith. But now you see people who are lined up with what they think is God, but they don't know the truth. So there's no way that's God when you can do that, but you don't know the truth. There's no way you are God's pastor, but you have never come into the truth. So whose pastor are you? There's no way you're God's minister, but you have never come into the truth. So whose minister are you? There's no way you are God's musician, but you have never come into the truth. So whose musician are you? There's no way you are God's bishop, but you have never come into the truth. So whose bishop are you? You can't be anything according to God, or you can't be anything for God if you don't belong to God, and there is no way you belong to God if you have never come into the truth. You are living by the God that man created. You are living by a system that man set up. With the God that man created, your life doesn't show any results. With the God that man created, you can claim to be a believer and claim that your blessing is on the way. See, I used to live by that God. I used to live by and try to line my life up with that God that man created. And I lived that way to where I was never blessed, but my blessing was always on the way. I used to live to where I wasn't being healed when I was sick, but it was always because God just wanted me to go through this. So with the God that man created, you never get results, but there's always a good excuse why you're not seeing the results. And the excuse is always an outside excuse. It's never because of what you're not doing, and it's never because of what you don't know. It's always on God, or it's always on the next man. But you're always okay. That's the God that man created. With the God that man created, you always put on a show. But with the true and living God, with the Word, with God's system, it's not about putting on a show. With the truth, with the righteousness according to faith, with God's system, God is something that you have to do. The reason you see people who claim to be true believers, but they don't get results, is because they're doing church, but they're not doing God. It's because they're doing religion, but they're not doing God. It's because they're doing man, but they're not doing God. You know why people want a lot of things, but they never seem to be able to get the things they want? It's because they're not doing God. You know why people are always sick? Every time you talk to them, they sick with something else. Every time you talk to them, they got another issue going on. It's because they're not doing God. You know why people are always broke? Claiming to be believers, claiming to be faith walkers, but they're always broke. Because they're not doing God. You know why people who claim to be faith walkers take so much medicine? It's because they're not doing God. You know why people who claim to be blessed under that God that man created? You know why they claim to be blessed, but they act like they can't miss 1 hour of work? They can't miss 1 day of work? It's because they're not doing God. They say they're depending on the true God, but they're not. They're depending on the God that man created. So they have to work. They have to slave. Because if they don't, they won't be able to maintain the things that they have, because the true God didn't give you those things. The true God didn't bless you with that. You got that under that false system of man and the God that man created. So you got to work your butt off in order to keep it. And the reason for that is you're not doing God. People now, they're doing everything except God. People now are doing all kind of magnificent things in the church. They got all kind of great titles. They have been put on a pedestal. They have been praised. Some of them have been worshiped. They pretend to have more power than Paul. But when you talk to them, you find out that they are not doing God. They're doing the tongue, but they're not doing God. They're doing the tithe, but they're not doing God. They're doing all the revivals, but they're not doing God. They can quote 1,000,000 scriptures, but they're not doing God. They can break scriptures down one after the other, but they're not doing God. They are living by the God that man created. How is it that you can be such an awesome person when it comes to religion, but when I ask you just a couple of questions about the true God, you have no answers? How is it that you can have such a great title when it comes to religion, but I ask you one simple biblical question and you don't know how to answer it? How is it that you can be such a great person in church and have such great responsibility when it comes to the God that man created, but you can't answer one or two short, simple questions about the true and living God. You can't answer a couple of short, simple questions about living by faith. How is that? It's because you never actually came into the truth. You never actually came into the faith. When you come into the truth, when you actually become a faith walker, there are stages that you will go through. The first stage that you go through when you first find out the real truth is the experimental stage, where you hear the truth, you hear about faith and how it works, and you start experimenting with it. You start trying it on this, trying it on that, trying it over there, trying faith in different areas of your life. That's the first stage. Once you try the truth and you try living by faith, doing specific things here and there by faith, you're going to see that this actually works. You're going to start to realize that faith is really true. You're going to see that, man, we really are supposed to be living this way. We really are what the word says we are. Once you do that, you're going to come to another stage. And that stage is going to be getting highly upset. That second stage is the stage where you get mad. You're going to be mad because you know something now that you have never known before. You're going to be mad when you think about the people that you talk to, the pastors that you done talked to, the family members that you done dealt with, who never told you the truth. You're going to be mad about the time that you look back in your life and see how things have gone that didn't have to go that way if you knew what you know now. And you gonna be mad. You gonna be extremely hot. That's the second stage. I won't even go further because there's so many stages. But that's stage one, experimenting to find out that this stuff is real. And stage two, getting 38 hot because you never knew this. Getting 38 hot because they never told you this. That's why you know so many people out here have never come into the truth, because they ain't mad. I know you ain't in faith because you ain't been mad yet. I know you don't know the truth because you haven't started experimenting yet. And if the truth be told, the experimental stage is something you will never do. The stage where you get mad is somewhere you'll never get to. You will never make it to either one of those stages until you get away from the God that man created.